cash, homie.
Would you please break a damn story?
He took it out.
Oh, for you.
Monday, PFT OT. This is the place where we talk about the things we didn't get to during PFT Live, or the things we'd like to talk about a little bit more. He's Chris Simms. I'm Mike Florio. Also, hello to the PFT PM audience. The podcast shows up there. And I want to start with the top story in the NFL right now, Tom Brady, and the number two story, the CBA vote. Even though most fans don't care about it, if you really care about football, you should be caring about it. You should be paying attention to it. It's going to shape the league for the next decade. And if the deal doesn't go through, the next year and a half could get very interesting. Chris, one reality for Tom Brady, and this also applies to Drew Brees. Until we know whether or not there's a new CBA, we won't know what kind of contracts they can structure, because each guy has a major cap hit that will hit the books if they become free agents. For Brady, it's more than $13 million. For Brees, it's more than $20 or $21 million. They need to be able to work new deals if they stay with their current teams to move that money around. And under the current CBA, it's much more difficult than if the new one goes through. If the new one goes through, it's easier to work out contracts that pays them what they want and keeps them where they are.
Well, and so wait, why is that? See, so I don't know a lot about this aspect of it. So, well, why does that help? Why would the new CBA help that?
There are specific quirks in the last rule, or the last year rather,
right,
of the current CBA that discourage teams from signing contracts aimed at pushing a bunch of cap dollars out into a new system that possibly may not even have a salary cap.
Yeah, right.
And the Dion rule from the mid-'90s, when he was signed by the Cowboys at a time when the CBA was going to expire and they pushed a bunch of money, or they tried to push a bunch of money to future years. The Dion rule says that your signing bonus allocation every year of the contract must be equal to, or let me flip that around, your total salary has to at least be as much as your signing bonus allocation. So you can't give the guy a big pile of money and minimum salaries for the life of the contract to get him paid now and push all those cap dollars into future years. There has to be a 50-50 split, which forces you to take more of the cap hit this year. This is one of the quirks of the last year of a CBA. The 30% rule kicks in, where you can only have a 30% increase maximum in a player's salary from year to year. That kicks in the last year of a CBA. The goal is you don't want to create an environment where teams can write a gigantic check and use the typical quirks for trying to spread cap dollars over many years and push current year dollars into future years. And the bottom line is it just makes it harder. And for Tom Brady and for Drew Brees, when you're already carrying that big anchor, that 8-figure cap charge that has to be subsumed into your new contract, it becomes even more of a challenge. And, it could be that if they, whether they keep the guys or get rid of them, there's a big cap figure that's going to apply this year. And we've seen with Brees in the past, the Saints have been able to kick the can. It's going to be harder to kick the can this year for both of those teams.
Right. Well, I mean, like the Brady number, $13 million, you could live with that as a franchise. Of course, you don't want to have to deal with dead money to like you're saying, 8 figures in dead money over one player. But we did see some teams cut players last year and had $8 and $10 and $12 million of dead money left, right? The Brees one is really intriguing to me, because you said that, right? Is it north of $21 million right now?
I think it's either 20.8 or 21.8. I'm going to confirm it right now.
Okay, but it's right there. So to me, that's the one where I look at and go, man, what are they going to do? How are they going to structure this contract, to lessen that blow? Or is that even possible at this point, Mike? And are they just going to have to deal with this?
You may just have to bite the bullet.
Right?
You may just have to bite the bullet, right? Because you can't do the gigantic signing bonus with minimal salaries and then push dollars into future years and take that. That 21 is a starting point. That 21 isn't going anywhere. The question is, how do you pay Drew Brees by adding a minimal amount to the 21 to get it to 26 or 27 or 28? It's just going to be harder to do this year. Let me just confirm this. It is 21.3.
How are they going to do it? Like, how are they going to do that? Because they're not going to want to sign him for anything more than a 2-year deal, right? I would think that's the absolute max here at this point of his career. So,
but I think you have to sign him to like a 4 or 5 year deal and spread out as much as you can of the signing bonus.
Right.
And then you're going to have to at some point,
bite the bullet.
There's going to be a reckoning
Yeah.
where Drew Brees isn't going to be playing for you anymore, but you're going to have $20, $22, $23 million in his name on your salary cap. So we know Brees is going back to the Saints. It's just a question of working out the deal. But the reason that deal isn't done, we need to see what the CBA is going to be. And for the Patriots, I think it's even more of a challenge because, you know, Brees doesn't have any leverage because he's going to take whatever the Saints ultimately offer.
Yeah.
Brady has leverage because Brady's made it clear that, well, he hasn't made it clear. The circumstances make it clear that he's going to go somewhere else. Brees has made it clear that he's not leaving the Saints. But that's something to keep an eye on, and it's a reason why both Brees and Brady should have definitely voted yes for the new CBA. A couple of star players, and we've seen a lot of star players vote no. These guys should vote yes because it impacts them in a very direct way as it relates to working out their contracts where they're currently playing. All right, another thing about the CBA, and this is something that I caught wind of on Saturday, and I made sure that both sides agree with me on this, both the league and the union. If they don't do this deal and they stick with the rules of the last year of the current CBA, the things we already talked about, 30% rule, the Deion Sanders rule, the rule that you can't spread a cap hit if you cut a guy or trade a guy over 2 years.
Yeah.
You have to take the full cap charge this year. There are other things as well. You can read the full story at PFT. The swing in spending between current deal and new deal. The league says it's $700 million. The union says $700 million is the outer limit. The more realistic range is $600 to $650 million. Either way, you're talking about money that just won't be spent this year. Now, some of that money is going to be spent next year, but for guys who are due to become free agents, your ship has come in. Now is the time to get paid. And the market just isn't going to be there because of these salary cap devices that are going to depress the actual spending that we otherwise would see if they unlock a new CBA. That's something to keep in mind as you're choosing whether to vote yes or vote no. You may not like the deal. There may be things about the deal that you complain about, and you're going to ignore the good points and grouse about the bad points. But the bottom line is total dollars that will be available this year, as little as $600 million, as high as $700 million in total dollars that come available if they do the new CBA. And that is a bipartisan assessment.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I think D. Smith and Eric Winston agreed to the deal.
Yeah, well, those are some pretty strong numbers. I mean, that's pretty easy to get behind if you're a player. I mean, certainly that's a positive thing. You know, the one thing we haven't talked about, and I don't even know if I have this, but just to this point a little bit is what is the floor cap for the new CBA? Is that continuing to stay the same as we've seen like so many teams flirt with that minimal amount of money they'll spend as far on their salary every year? Has that changed at all in this new agreement?
The floor has increased, but not as much as maybe I'd like it to.
Yeah.
It was 89%, and they did a 4-year rolling cash spend average where you didn't have to do 89% every year. You had to get to 89% in that 4-year window.
Okay.
It's now 90%, which, I mean, look, a percentage point when you're talking about these kind of numbers is a lot of money, but it's 90%, and it's 3 years, then 4 years that they're going to do that average. The total league spending is still 95%. So all teams combined have to get to 95 cents on the dollar. But, you know, why not? Look, the whole purpose of a salary cap, Chris, is to protect the teams against themselves, to prevent them from spending themselves into oblivion. And here's the example. You're going on a shopping spree.
Yeah.
Your dad gives you $100 to go spend, right? Because he knows you're going to spend a hell of a lot more than that if you can.
Right.
You got $100 to spend. You're going to spend it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to spend it. These teams are choosing not to spend it. Not all of them, but a lot of them are choosing to ram some of that money into their pocket as pure profit, because that's what it is. It's money that you're supposed to spend on players, but you don't have to spend it, and so you squirrel it away. And that's why we see teams with like $80 million in cap space. They're not spending what they need to spend or what they can spend. And I've long believed that one of the flaws with this CBA, the last one and this one, not forcing teams to spend more of the money, because the whole idea of the cap is if we don't have it, we're all going to spend a hell of a lot more than what they're limiting us to spending.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it kind of seems against the spirit of the rule and what the deal is made there. And then the other thing I want to know, too, is, like, I'm curious to know, does this 4-year 89% rolling average that you're talking about, like, all right, let's say a team's done it for the last 3 years, and now a new CBA comes out where they've been, let's say they're at 87 and 87% and 87. Now it's a new CBA. Does the language start over again? And it doesn't even count for that 4th year to go to an average? Did the NFL teams find some loophole here? I'm just curious. That just came to my mind as you were explaining that to me.
I'd have to study the current CBA, but my guess is that they've taken that into account.
I hope so.
As they, when they did the deal in 2011, hey, what do we do for the last year or two of the deal if we do an early renegotiation? And look, these rules are put in place to create an incentive to do a new deal for both sides. Remember, it used to be uncapped year.
Yeah.
That was what happened in 2010. It's not uncapped this year, but there are devices there to give both sides an incentive to get a deal done because it's going to be harder to do business.
Mike, that's the last thing there, just because I was just going to bring that up. That's what gives me bad faith about the owners, though. That would be another example of where I just go, why is this being rushed? I don't trust them. Because in the uncapped year where the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins spent money like there was no cap, they were ultimately penalized and had money taken away from them in an uncapped year, which tells me there's collusion in the NFL, as we all know anyways. But, you want to ask a guy like Mike Shanahan why his Washington Redskins, coaching career didn't go the way it was supposed to? Because the NFL penalized them for spending money, and he lost $40 million on one of his first years as a coach in free agency, and that changes your team and your tenure. So that gives me no faith in the owners at times. That's all I just wanted to say there.
Well, and look, if we want to go down that rabbit hole, let's go ahead and finish the journey. The NFLPA signed off on the cap penalties that were imposed on the Cowboys and Washington, and the Raiders got a little bit of the flack, and I think the Saints too, but not nearly as much, for treating the uncapped year as uncapped. The NFLPA signed off on it as part of the annual negotiation on what the salary cap is going to be because they were looking at the possibility in 2012 of the salary cap going down in comparison to what it was in 2011. So the salary cap goes up. The union looks the other way on this collusive activity. And then the union tried to sue the NFL for collusion after they agreed to allow these cap penalties. So, look, that was a weird time.
Very weird.
Especially because
I forgot that.
Especially because if that collusion lawsuit would have gone forward, I may have ended up being expected to testify, and I would have had to say I can't testify because I can't disclose my sources, and then I may have gone to jail. So I was very, very interested in how that all played out. But that's how it all happened. And look, there's a chance that the owners are bamboozling D. Smith and Eric Winston. There's a chance that the owners are lying through their teeth and that these guys are believing it. There's a chance. I'm not saying it's the truth.
Yeah.
I'm saying there's a chance. And if that's the case, back to the original point that I've been making for the past 5 days now, if you're not willing to accept the advice and the judgment of the people you have put in position to do these deals, it's a different conversation. You need to get somebody else to do it. So why now? Because D. Smith has decided that he agrees with the network and the league proposition that this is the opportunity to get the biggest possible TV pie. And the players get like 55% of the TV money. So it's all the more reason for them to try to get the TV money at a time when the TV money is maximized. D. Smith thinks it is. Maybe it really isn't. But he's in the best position to make that judgment. And if you don't trust his judgment, get a new executive director. All right. The Bills have gotten a new defensive back. Josh Norman, after being cut by Washington when his former coach Ron Rivera shows up to take over in Washington, Norman reunites with his former defensive coordinator, Sean McDermott, in Buffalo. Now, Norman never really lived up to that $15 million a year contract. He was good, not great. I remember his first game in Washington, Chris. People were like, why isn't he covering Antonio Brown? Why is Bashad Breeland covering Antonio Brown? Well, Josh Norman doesn't travel. Well, why the hell are they paying him $15 million a year? And I think his career there was always clouded by that reality. Less money, lower expectations, and maybe a guy who can help make a difference in Buffalo. This is what you do with free agents. You have your core team that you built via the draft, And then you use free agency to selectively add to certain areas where you have a deficiency.
Yeah, right. And they got a deficiency there. You know, they've got some corners and secondary people who are going to hit free agency, you know, a Levi Wallace who's restricted. But Josh Norman, you know, at the very least is a proven commodity and understands how to play in that Sean McDermott scheme, which is not a man-to-man travel with the best type of wide receiver type scheme. That's not what they do. And, of course, when they do that, which is not a whole lot, they're not going to ask Josh Norman to go against the number one anymore because they have Tre'Davious White. So that makes a lot of sense. I think it was a good signing for them, not only to just, you know, become a better defense and have a better starting corner out there, but gives them more depth. And, of course, some familiarity there as well. And then, you know, you mentioned it, like, yeah, he's not a travel island man-to-man type corner. And here we are in the era of, like, hey, the next guy gets a new contract or gets the most money in his position every time, right? If you're in the top 5 or top 10 conversation of your position. I mean, Josh Norman was so overpaid with the Washington Redskins, and that was such a horrible contract by them. We only have one corner in football that makes $15 million a year, and that's Xavier Howard. Josh Norman signed that contract, what'd you say, 3 or 4 years ago? I can't even remember now. But that's, to me,
it was 2016.
That
it was
just
right after the
shows
Super Bowl.
Yeah, that shows you how insane that contract was. I mean, it was stupid on the Redskins. I don't know what else to say there. And, yeah, I mean, we're still looking at top corners right now in football asking to be paid maybe $15 million per year. So I like the signing. That old contract was ridiculous.
And just to show you how dysfunctional the team was under Bruce Allen, I mean, good Lord, they should have cut him last year.
Yeah,
right. At the latest, they should have cut him last year, and now he's gone, making a lot less, but maybe making an impact with the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. All right, another team in Washington, Chris, a team that you know nothing about because you hate the XFL and you refuse to watch it. The DC Defenders.
Right.
They made a stir yesterday because we heard a lot about Cardell Jones.
Yes.
Star of the XFL early on.
Right.
11-0 during his time at Ohio State as a starter. 2-0 to start his XFL career. 13-0 as a starter, and then the wheels came off. They got blown out in a couple of back-to-back road losses. He had 5 interceptions, no touchdown passes. They were shut out last weekend. They were beat by at least 30 points by the LA Wildcats a week before that. Yesterday at home against the St. Louis Battlehawks, Cardell Jones 0 for 2 with 1 interception, got the hook for Tyree Jackson. Pep Hamilton, the coach in D.C., says that it was planned that Jones was going to be benched, and he's going to start next week. Now, Chris, You can't really talk about this because you don't watch the XFL, but I don't know why you would bench a guy for part of a game. Like, what happens next week? If he stinks again, are they going to bench him for Tyree Jackson? Tyree Jackson got the win. Why isn't Tyree Jackson the quarterback? So this is odd to me that they would put Cardell Jones back in.
Yep.
Jones got the win, ended the losing streak.
Right.
And Jackson got the win. Jones has been bad. I don't know why there's some deference to Cardell Jones at this point.
Yeah, well, I don't know either. I mean, one, because he's one of the marquee names in the league. You mentioned it. I mean, he won the national championship, won 11-0 at Ohio State, did all that. You know, so there's name recognition there. You know, not everybody understands who Tyree Jackson is. You know, he's a guy that we looked at last year and I thought maybe he was a guy that could play tight end in the NFL ultimately, not even quarterback. I'm not buying Pep Hamilton's, we were going to bench him bullcrap excuse either. Anyways, I'm not buying that. No, I think they saw him go 0-2. And, yeah, I'm not sitting down watching XFL games. Like I told you, I've tuned in here and there to check out a few things. But, yes, it does look like the wheels have fallen off for that offense and Cardell Jones in general. And again, as much as I'm not really paying attention to this league, I'm paying attention enough to these top quarterbacks to go, man, Cardell Jones has a few more games like we've seen here as of late, and he won't be able to get it back into the NFL and get a job again. So that's where I'm interested to continue to watch and at least, like, keep tabs on what these guys are doing. You know, right now, hey, we already talked about the star, you know, Phillip Walker. He's the one guy right now. Every time I turn on a highlight or see it, I just go, wow, that kid's got something. The rest of the league, I'm not so sure about.
That's why if I'm the XFL, I'm coming up with an offer right now to get P.J. Walker to commit to next year and not leave. If they really want to build something with the XFL, they have to either sign star players who are available or keep the guys that they make into stars. You can't have this revolving door where a guy escapes for the NFL And then you're left to say, well, who are we going to replace him with? Because they
Agreed.
clearly don't have enough good quarterbacks, and they need to find a way. Or just find a way where...
Just give him enough money. Just enough, right? You just want to wet his beak to where he goes, wait, do I really want to go roll the dice and try to make a roster as a backup quarterback in the NFL and make...
And not play.
And not play. Right, and make $600,000, which, hey, again, I'll take it right now. Nobody's saying that's not a lot of money, but if the XFL threw out, $1.2 million to keep the best player in their league there, that might be the type of thing that PJ Walker goes, damn, okay, the hell with the backup. I'll continue to just kick butt and kick ass here in the XFL, and as long as I do that, there'll be backup jobs available for me in the NFL at some point, or maybe a starter, almost like a Doug Flutie. I think of Doug Flutie here. He just kept capitalizing in Canada, then played enough, and the NFL felt comfortable enough. They're like, come on, Doug, come back. We think you're good enough now. And he made a little run in the NFL. You could do that if you're PJ Walker.
He's definitely been the best player so far in the XFL. Jordan Ta'amu, or as you said, Tamiflu. He's been very good as well. But, there's a lot of teams with not good quarterbacks, and if they lose their best players, the XFL is going to have a hard time next year. All right, last topic of the day. We got in trouble earlier, not really, but we did fill in the blanks, and we only got to one topic talking about Taysom Hill. So we've got 3 more that we want to go ahead and finish up so we can say we did our job for this Monday. Jacoby Brissette says he's just doing his job when it comes to all the quarterback rumors involving the Colts. The blank will employ Jacoby Brissette in 2020.
Right now, I'm still going to go with the Colts. Right now, I'm going to go with the Colts as him being a really high-priced backup quarterback. Now, there's another great example of why did you throw all that money out there? Did you have to throw that much out there to him? This is what I don't understand about owners in the quarterback market right now. And I think we're overdoing it. But, I look at his current cap charge and the things he's dealing with there, and I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to be able to trade Jacoby Brissette away because some team's going to look at him as a starter and then also pay him, $15 million a year, Mike, right? I mean, that's about the money he's expected to make. I got to pull it up again. I got it here. I left the page I was on there by accident. But that, to me, is the big thing. Like, I don't think they're getting rid of Jacoby Brissette unless they pay some of the salary as well.
Yeah, they owe him $8 million plus in a guaranteed roster bonus, and there's a $6 million salary on top of it. I think he's going to play for the Colts. I think they're going to keep him, and they're going to supplement him with somebody else who's making as much or less than Jacoby Brissette. And then combined, that's your quarterback budget. But I think they want to see if Brissette can turn it around. Frank Reich is a believer. And I still think that if they can get Nick Foles, and if the Jaguars pay part of his salary, or if they can get a good trade deal, then maybe they take Foles off the Jaguars' hands, and the Jaguars, by all appearances, want to go forward with Gardner Minshew. That could be a win-win, and then you let Foles and Brissette compete.
I agreed. I could totally see that. You're right. I mean, the dead money and what they're going to pay him and all of that just doesn't make sense. I mean, if he stays on the team, they give him $15.8 million. If they cut him, it's still going to cost $12.5 million. So for that, the $3 million difference, I would just say, Colts, you just keep them and then see what else you can do from there on out. So it'll be interesting. I do think there'll be some teams that'll call and be interested. I would think teams that, maybe the New England Patriots, the Tennessee Titans, the Houston Texans, all who, of course, know people in New England who drafted him originally and have a same vision of what they want their backup quarterback to be. I think Jacoby Brissette will have a market like that, but I just don't know if ultimately anybody's going to trade anything away from him and pay him that money.
Watch the Parcells connections, too, because
you're right.
Brissette is very close with Parcells, so he may be twisting some arms out there to get somebody to take him. Teddy Bridgewater's close with Parcells as well.
Yeah.
And, who knows? Depending upon I don't think the Saints can afford this, but, they need a veteran who can run the Saints offense if Drew Brees is injured, because that's not Taysom Hill. And if Teddy leaves, I think Brissette will be too expensive. But
Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be calling the Colts. right? Because I'd go, okay, if Ben gets hurt again, I don't want to just watch my season go down the drain with the guys we have, and we feel like we're a talented team. That would be a team I would go, man, Jacoby Brissette would make sense for him, and the Steelers would make sense for them too, to protect themselves like a Bridgewater did for Breeze and the Saints this past year. That would be another team that, I thought about filling in the blank with. Ultimately, I went with the Colts, but those were the teams that were going through my head.
All right, next up, Aaron Rodgers says he understands the Packers could use a first-round pick on a quarterback, but would prefer more immediate help. If you were Brian Gutekunst, you would, in round 1, draft a blank.
Draft a difference maker. That's all I care about. I mean, ultimately, I want to say a wide receiver, but, even if it's a big-time defensive tackle, draft something. Yeah, I would draft something that's going to help my team right now. You've said it, right, many times here over the last year. And this is real, and this is the reality, I think, of the future of the NFL. We're seeing every year 4 or 5 really talented guys come in the NFL at the quarterback position. You don't need to panic and go, oh, man, Aaron Rodgers only has 4 years left. We need to draft a quarterback. No, you don't. He's got at least 4 years left. Make the team better. They need some big-time playmakers. They do need an A.J. Green or a number 1 receiver in the draft, whatever it may be. They need something like that. Or another offensive lineman or an interior D tackle, like I said. But I don't want to see it wasted on a quarterback. I wouldn't do that.
Offensive linemen in round 1 are always not, and defensive linemen. Anybody other than skill position players aren't viewed as sexy because everybody's looking for their next fantasy football standout.
Right.
But I would go with an offensive lineman.
Sure.
Brian Bulaga, likely not going to be back, and I would want to keep Aaron Rodgers protected. But
hear that.
Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years, but the only reason they drafted Aaron Rodgers is because they didn't know what the hell Brett Favre was going to do. Every year he's talking about, I may retire, may retire, may retire. Well, they had to protect themselves. Rodgers fell into their laps, so they took him.
Yes.
And he sat for 3 years until they finally encouraged Brett Favre to get the hell out because they wanted to go forward with Rodgers.
That's right. We have no inkling of that. I mean, Rodgers makes comments. I heard him make a comment on Friday on that Wisconsin radio show. He plans on playing for a long time. So when he says that, I don't think we're even in the, last 4 years conversation here. I think this is a guy that's looking to go to 40 or somewhere 41 or 42. He takes care of his body, and I don't think he's going to lose RPMs on his arm or anything like that. So, yes, I would not rush to the quarterback conversation if I'm Gutekunst yet.
He's 36 years old. He is signed through 2023. They wouldn't have given him that giant contract that they did if they didn't think he was going to play for a while. And, I think he's going to be there, and they shouldn't waste a draft pick on a position where they have a starter who's going to be there for a long time. They can find a backup, and they need to use that pick on an impact player, and I would say offensive lineman. All right, last one. The Cardinals, the Jets, and the Texans have inquired about Trent Williams. Out of those 3 teams, the blank need Trent Williams the most.
Well, I'd probably go with the Cardinals, I think, if I was going to look at any of those 3. I mean, they all can use them, certainly. I think the Texans are probably the one I look at that least could use him. I mean, they did draft 2 offensive linemen early, a first rounder, and Max Sharping. I can't remember if he was a second or third rounder, and of course they traded, for Laramie Tunsil as well. So I look at them and go, okay, they're okay. The Cardinals, I just go, and the Jets are in this conversation as well. But the Cardinals, I mean, you got a guy like Kyler Murray, as we've talked about. He's special. He really is. And, you got a guy like Trent Williams. He's really special, too. He's a Hall of Fame left tackle. I mean, he's really slam dunk, doesn't matter who you put over there. He can handle him by himself. And, I think that would be a great addition to that football team. They could have him at left tackle, and then, have a guy like DJ Humphries who's talented or whatever at right tackle or whatever they want to do. They can move it around.
When I saw that the Texans were interested, my first thought is, are they going to trade Laramie Tunsil for Trent Williams and get back some of what they gave up to get Tunsil? Right?
I think it's a good thought.
Use both of them?
I thought it was odd, too. I'm with you. I did not quite get that either. I was with you. I'm with you. I was like, well, what are they going to do? They going to move Laramie Tunsil to right tackle? Or are they trying to think about, hey, we'll give you a Tunsil and just give us Trent Williams, and we'll make a trade that way, and then we'll give Trent Williams a new contract? I don't know. But, I thought that was a little peculiar, too.
Yeah, and part of the problem, the Texans pulled the trigger on that trade last year, gave up a lot to get Tunsil and receiver Kenny Stills, and didn't sign him to a new contract then and there. All the leverage is with Tunsil. All right, we have exhausted fill in the blanks. We have completed our project for Monday. We have completed PFT OT. And I have a programming note, Chris. Tomorrow, a special joint Chris Simms Unbuttoned PFT PM free agency preview. We're going to tape that after the show. We'll see you for PFT Live at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Kiss my ass, Daylight Time.
Up your
Daylight
spring
savings
forward, you damn annoying bastard.
Winter forward.
Yeah, winter
All right,
forward.
everybody have a good day.
See ya.
We'll see you tomorrow.